My name is Stowers, and I'm Director of Learning Services for Pearson North America, and I'm part of our Pearson Accelerated business. And I'm really excited to be here at the CLO Symposium talking about bridging the gap between first jobs and first careers. So you may be wondering why this discussion and why now? And really, the discussion is important because we're talking about the needs of the frontline worker and how they're different from traditional skilled labor in most markets, but are treated with a one-size-fits-all mentality when it comes to how we invest in their learning and development. Most organizations don't provide meaningful benefits that help meet the needs of the front line, and especially aren't meeting the needs where those frontline workers are. Millions of working adults, about 34 million without a high school diploma and another 30 million with some college and no degree, have been left off the path of educational attainment and will continue to struggle economically to advance without some form of employer assistance. Labor shortages are increasingly happening in many markets, whether that's hospitality, retail, restaurants, healthcare, or manufacturing. And due to that, and that's largely due to a lack of skilled labor, a increasing retirement of current employees, and just the available talent pool. So what I'd like to do today is to talk to you about some questions that as learning leaders we should consider when thinking about investing in frontline workers. And I think the first one is really, how do you define frontline worker based on your experience? For many of us, when we think about frontline workers, we think about those that are closest to our customers. And depending on your company and the organization you're in, you may think of frontline workers as a retail banker or an investment banker, but in many organizations, that frontline worker is a patient care technician. It's a home health aide. It's the young man or the young woman that sold you French fries when you went in to buy lunch. And so when you begin to think about the frontline worker in that context, you begin to think very differently about the audience that you're trying to reach. The second question that as learning leaders and talent leaders that we really need to embrace is, what does it mean to be the voice of the front line in your role? So again, how do you get out there and understand the needs of your front line? How do you understand the path they walk in their work every day? How do you understand where they've come from? And that becomes crucially important when you begin to think about the roadblocks that the front line has had to educational attainment. We're talking about employees in your organizations that struggled to make decisions between, do I invest in childcare or buy groceries? How am I going to pay to get to work every day? And when you think about that employee, then you reflect on their educational attainment, they're making those decisions in context of, how do I pay $700 or $800 to go take a class or get that next certification that maybe would advance me in my career? So becoming the voice of the front line in your role is exceptionally important. The next question is to think about in your own experience, what challenges have you had in developing the front line? I'll share with you a story that we recently heard from a learning leader that we were talking to that said they developed this great online course and they deployed it to their front line. And it was amazing. And they said, in this particular course, we didn't include an audio narration. We had limited narration. And then they got feedback from the front line that said, hey, you know what? We have a lot of people here that English isn't their first language. And we have some people that, aren't the best readers. And so what they learned was that their front line, the people that this content was most geared towards, really relied on the audio in order to learn what the organization was trying to convey. And so, again, this question is really fundamentally important because as learning professionals, we strive to put out the best content and we're really trying to move the organization, but sometimes we have to understand the challenges that our learners are bringing to the workplace and those challenges that we as learning professionals have to overcome. So the next question as a learning leader and a talent leader that we encourage you to ask is, what is the key to successfully help transition your frontline from the idea of a first job mentality to first career mindset? And as we talk with learning and development professionals and talent leaders across the industry, what we find is that there's a real need to communicate a couple of key things to your frontline workers. So first of all, help them understand, no matter what their position is, where they fit in to the overall mission and purpose of the organization. So if you're a healthcare organization and your mission is to deliver care and to develop healthy lifestyles for your patients, make them understand their connection to that mission. The second thing is make sure that they know, where they can go. So, they're coming into your organization in a very specific point for a very specific job, but make sure they know where they can go and what's really possible for them. The third, which is, I think, equally important, is really making sure that they understand where you as an organization are investing in them. And the reason we think this is important is we hear in a number of industries where frontline employees are making the decision to change jobs for 25, 30 cents more an hour. And while to them that feels like a greater investment by the employer, economically, they're not persisting in organizations in a way to allow them to really take advantage of the benefits and the investments that companies will make, like tuition assistance. So in wrapping up, one of the things that I think is important that we want everybody to take away from this conversation around investing in your frontline workers is when it comes to recognizing the needs of the frontline and understanding the needs of the frontline, is actually understanding that the frontline has very unique personas. For most of us, again, in our roles, we think of our knowledge workers, our white collar workers, our more skilled trades workers. But when we step back and we look at the front line, we really see some different types of personas. We see the individual who maybe hasn't succeeded in their path or in their life, but has been the rock of their family, that is the go-to person that holds everything together, who is looking for that investment in them and someone to say to them, I believe in you and you can achieve. We see personas of those individuals that have been convinced that failure is really their only path and that they really need someone who in organizations and structures that will support them and say, I believe that you can achieve and here's how I'm going to help you get there. As learning and development professionals, we all want everything that we put to the organization and everyone to come to the organization excited to learn and ready. And I think that understanding the unique needs and personas of the front line and really becoming the voice of your frontline employees will help you both in terms of the development of your talent. It will help you with your retention rates, your employee engagement rates, and ultimately ensure that you have a vibrant and robust talent pipeline. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in future events.